We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
What if sitting down alone, eyes closed, doing nothing, is actually one of the most effective ways for you to become a better partner, a better leader, a better person in the world? And what if the deeper this practice goes, the more effective you can become out here in your life? And the more effective you become out here, the deeper this practice can go. That's the loop we're talking about today. My guest is someone I only recently met, but he's quite literally gotten into my head. Toby Sola has been teaching meditation for 2 decades. He trained for years inside a monastery, studied closely with a renowned teacher, Shinzen Young, and eventually took everything he learned and built it into something modern men and everyone can actually use, an app called Bright Mind. We get into what it's really like to live inside a monastery, the humbling, the community, the getting your rough edges knocked off by 20 other people sitting in silence with you for hours every day. We talk about why so many guys, especially, try meditation, get frustrated, and quit, and what's usually missing when that happens. We talk about doubt, into hitting the wall where space and time start to feel strange and why that's totally normal. And we talk about the dark secret of meditation, nihilism, that gut punch feeling that nothing means anything, which a lot of us run into the moment we actually sit still and get really quiet. Toby's approach is refreshingly unmystical. It's precise, it's structured, it's almost like an engineering approach to the inner world, which makes sense because he comes from an engineering background. And that's exactly what makes the depth of what he's teaching land with me. This conversation might change how you think about your own meditation practice, whether you've never sat or you've been sitting for years. Welcome to the Mankind Podcast. Everybody, it's Boysen Hodgson. Welcome back to the Mankind Podcast, the show where we break the molds of modern manhood to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is more than one way to be a man. And today, I'm thrilled. I'm excited to be hanging out with somebody who I just recently met and who is already having an impact on my mind, and I'm guessing he's going to have an impact on your mind as well. Toby Sola, who is the founder of Bright Mind. Tell you what that is in a little while. Toby, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. You will have, listening to Toby's voice through this podcast, you're going to get a taste of something that I hope that you will engage with more fully. Toby Sola is dedicated to helping you create a feedback loop between your meditation practice and your ability to make the world a better place. So the more you meditate, the more effective you are in the world. And the more effective you are, the deeper your meditation practice becomes. Toby's been teaching meditation for 2 decades. His craft as a teacher has been refined through years of monastic training and close collaboration with world-renowned teacher Shinzen Young. Shinzen Young, I'll say that again. Toby is an award-winning designer and founder of the Bright Mind app. Toby, thank you for being here with me. I was excited. I'm excited to get into this conversation. But first, I want to go back, right? 2 decades of teaching meditation and being involved in contemplative practice. So give us a little bit of background. How did you get into it? When did you discover meditation? What were some of your early experiences?
Sure. So I was really lucky to be raised rurally, very rurally in the hills of Vermont. And so one way to answer that question is just as a child, I would take hours and hours of just bushwhacking through the woods, not even following a trail. And I think nature is kind of the original mindfulness teacher. I just fell into mindfulness as a kid, spending so much time in nature. And then I was really lucky to have a neighbor who was she basically just taught me meditation. She was very experienced in more of a shamanic tradition, which I'm not as much passionate about anymore now. But she got me going and taught me some basic practices, and I really took to them. And then when I was like 17 years old, I got Lyme disease, which for some portion of patients kind of turns into a nasty chronic condition. And for me, it did. And I was confronted with very major health problems. I had to take a year off of college at the time. And I was talking to my aunt, and I was like, I think I want to really lean into meditation because there's not a lot of hobbies that I can do because I'm in so much pain. And I'm interested in it anyways. And she said, "Oh, Toby, you have to go to these free, like, or by donation retreats once a month. They're in Vermont, and there's this teacher, Shinzen. You'll love him." And I said, "Cool, I'll check it out." And so I went and was totally blown away by the way he presented meditation. It was highly systematic, highly precise, very comprehensive. And I could see how everything I had learned already kind of fit into his system, but there was so much more. And it was really inspiring. Very, very inspiring. And I jumped right in. I started practicing every day and eventually started teaching. And when I was done with college, I immediately joined a monastery where I trained for years. And that's where, I really did the work. You explored the deep end, what is this really about? And that basically leads up to what I'm up to now, which is running a meditation app called Bright Mind, and obviously still prioritizing my own personal practice as I do that. So that's the arch.
Many of us, me, probably most of our listeners, I don't know, that'd be interesting. Hey, if you're a listener who spent time at a monastery, send us a message to let us know that this is an experience that you've had. When you say engaged in a monastery, dove into the deep end, did the deep work, describe what it is like to live in that kind of environment, and how does that inform like how you now teach meditation through Bright Mind?
Sure. So there's a few things that come to mind. One is an emphasis on community and spiritual friendship, you could say. So a lot of people think of meditation as a solitary activity. And there are elements of that in some traditions. In some traditions, you may go to a cave for like 2 years. So that exists. But at least historically, the way in which meditation has been practiced is in the context of monasteries, which are very tight-knit, very intentional communities. And there's a huge emphasis on this in meditative traditions. So in the modern West, at least, people think of meditation as a solitary activity. It's something you do alone. And apps are somewhat facilitating that. You can learn meditation alone. And often, most of my students start learning meditation alone because they have my app, right? So, but especially once you know the basics, it's very important to practice with other people and have friends and peers and teachers, mentors, because it's actually a pretty subtle art that we're learning, and it's very helpful to do it with others and learn from each other and support each other. So I really got a major dose of that at the monastery. I, like most Westerners, had spent most of my time meditating alone. And when I got to the monastery, hours and hours and hours a day of sitting in a room with like 20 other people in silence for hours a day. And when someone was having a hard time, we all supported them. And, there's this Zen proverb which describes you take a bunch of rocks and you put them in a jar and you shake them up and they become marbles. That is part of the intention of a monastery, is you clean each other off so that you learn about relationships and how to actually apply this practice to your relationships. So the importance of community is one thing that I learned from the monastery. Another thing I learned from the monastery, or that really caught me off guard a little was like the centrality of humbleness.
Nice.
Yeah, like a lot of, well, when I went into the monastery, I was very confident in myself, which is a good trait. But I was confident in my understanding of meditation techniques and what we were doing and what this was about. And one of the things that the monastery does is it just gives you plenty of time to work out whatever idea you have of the practice. And then it's just like, you kind of get to a dead end. And so you have to move beyond whatever you thought this practice was about, because the sky's the limit with this practice. You can always relax more. You can always wake up more. You can always clarify more. And so we all have preconceptions. We all have ideas about what the practice is. Monastery just gives so much time and space to the practice that you have to confront kind of the dead end of whatever your idea is, and you have to go beyond it. And this is like a really important context in which it's helpful to have a teacher, because they can help you see that you're just kind of standing in front of a stone wall. It's like, well, you can just turn around and go somewhere else. You don't have to just sit there. So, but it's not only about our ideas of what the practice is, it's also about views. It's also about, I think this way, I have this value system, I think this about that, and I think that about this, and I have all these views in my mind. And well, I guess these are maybe related. It's like, in order to take the next step in your practice, often you have to let go of your worldviews. It like gets to that much of a bedrock of your mind. You know, like you can relax a bunch of conscious stuff, sure, but when you're done with all that, you got to start relaxing unconscious stuff. And so like it's really the bedrock of the human mind. Like, this is how the world works. This is who I am. This is what other people are. And you really have to start letting that go, which makes you ultimately really humble when it comes to hearing other people and what they think. And you just really get in the habit of just not thinking that you know what's right. You're just very open-minded and really supportive and welcoming to other people's perspectives. So community and humbleness, I think, are the two things that I ended up finding at the monastery.
That's great. That and it illustrates, going right back into your bio, this idea that the deepening of meditation can lead to you being more effective in the world, and you being more effective in the world can lead to the deepening of your meditation. So let's go into talking a little bit more about that, because those are the two lessons wrapped in, I think, is that community and humbleness. And it's not, I certainly was raised in a Western understanding of meditation and most spiritual practices, where it's a self-centered act in many ways. It's an individual thing, individual spiritual awakening, and you kind of bust that open. So, yeah, how can meditation make me more effective in the world, given those two things?
Yeah. So certainly, I was just talking about how meditation can make you open-minded.
Yeah.
And being a good listener. That's a great example of the way in which a meditative practice can make you more effective in the world, because being a good listener is a great skill to have, right? The ability to empathize, the ability to not think that you know what the right answer is. Like, that's super helpful in collaborative settings, professionally, familially, all sorts of ways. And I think, to tie to the community back to this kind of new frame, being in relationship and being in community fundamentally like nourishes a part of the human mind that really does need to be nourished. We are relational beings. We regulate each other's emotions without even thinking about it. So this general direction of being effective in the world, being in relationship, that really sets the stage for letting go, which is one way to define the awakening side of things. Because you feel held by your community, you feel proud of the work that you're doing in the world. And it offers a deep trust in yourself. Because if you're proud of what you're doing in the world and you're working on your relationships, there's a deep trust that emerges that you can't get any other way. And hesitancy is one of the main hindrances in meditation.
Ooh, tell me more.
Well, I mean, in Buddhism, there's 5 hindrances, and one of them is doubt. And it's basically maybe not at, I mean, so somewhat at first, but really at like the intermediate and advanced level of meditation, you're kind of on this knife's edge of, if I do the technique more,
Hey, it's Boysen. Sorry to interrupt. I'm jumping in with an invitation. If you've listened to a single episode of this podcast, you've heard me or Brandon talk about the Mankind Project. It's a global community committed to one simple but very complicated idea. We're men helping other men to become better men. One of the ways we make shift happen is through a weekend rite of passage called the New Warrior Training Adventure. It's not a retreat, it's not a workshop, it's an intensive, it's a digital detox, it's a crazy ride, it's a uniquely life-changing space. And it's a chance to step away from the regular world, tell the truth about where you are, and discover what's possible, surrounded by men, some of whom have been right where you are right now. And if you're a friend, a partner, a wife, a mom, or a grandma who loves a man, maybe he's waiting for an invitation. Share it with him. You can learn more at mkpusa.org.
I'm going to really start, it gets weird. Like you start to lose a sense of, you start to lose a sense of space and time, gets really weird. It gets kind of trippy, you know? And it kind of freaks people out. It's very normal to get a little freaked out.
Yes.
Which is totally natural. And you don't necessarily want to rush through that. You can, if you're really freaked out, like go watch a movie and eat popcorn. Like there's no reason to push through this transcendence piece. And as far as I'm concerned, some teachers are like, go, go, go. I'm like, no, chill. Like go eat gummies or something. Like you don't need to rush this process. It'll happen. We want to move slowly and safely. But anyways, at that level, you really need to trust the technique, trust your own mind, trust your life. There needs to be like a really subtle coziness that you only get if you're proud of the way that you're living and you're supported by friends. Like that's just the only way you get that type of like, it's okay. I trust my mind. I see how these techniques have helped my relationships. And I don't have to hesitate. I can kind of let the technique take over in a way where there's momentum and flow and energy, and I can let that happen.
Fantastic. One of the things that I hear from folks who try meditation, it's something that comes up in Mankind Project circles quite a bit. And Mankind Project has a relationship with a couple of meditative kind of practices out there. looking at the Integral Mondo Zen community and thinking with joy and a smile on my face of all the folks that I've sat with over the years in the Mankind Project, which is really beautiful. So it comes into our circles, and we will get guys coming and sitting down with us in men's group who say, yeah, I tried meditation. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. My brain just doesn't work that way. And something that you just said around, I learned to trust my mind. And without that level of trust, or without some basic sense of practice, or without some teaching and learning, and I think we're getting into pedagogy here, which I think is a good next place to go. I'm just wrestling with the monkeys. Like, I'm just going to sit down and wrestle with the monkeys for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and I'm going to feel dissatisfied and like I didn't do that well, and that was terrible, and I never want to do that again. But there are all these other people around me saying, this would be really good for you. This would be very helpful. So you founded Brightmind, and I remember when we talked, you said that you looked around and you saw what was out there in the market, and there were some fundamental things about the way that mindfulness was being taught, that was being offered out there, that you thought, I might be able to do something better with this. So now go into, it's Joe. Joe's frustrated as hell. Joe's sat down on the cushion a couple of times, gets just annoyed, and says, I can't meditate. Meditation doesn't work for me.
So, yeah, as you say, a lot of people try meditation and don't get very far, right? I would say that's often because stuff is either made overly complex and abstract, or it's actually oversimplified. So it might feel kind of nice, but it actually doesn't really change anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I teach and through Brightmind is, sorry, I'm having a brain fart here.
Is your tagline as simple as possible, but no simpler?
Right. Exactly. There you go. So you might have to edit that out or something. So yeah, everything in Brightmind is structured around a simple principle, as simple as possible, but no simpler. And this is based on, my decades of teaching and time in monasteries. And basically what I do is I strip out the complexity that creates confusion. But I also I'm careful not to oversimplify, because we need to keep the core part of meditation that makes it transformative. So, there's three. Here's the first answer to your question. One is in terms of just the pure guidance.
Yeah.
A lot of meditation instruction, it just kind of blurs together. It's like, focus on your breath, notice your thoughts, relax. It's a good start, but it lacks precision.
Yes.
So Brightmind it's a complete meditation system. So everything is, you'll learn a wide range of techniques, but it's presented in a way that's structured so it's not overwhelming. But everything is again, as simple as possible. So we really try to just stay on this knife's edge of as simple as possible, but no simpler. And it's reflected in a lot of ways. Like, I could talk more about how the app is structured, but that's the key answer in terms of the actual guidance.
Yeah. I will talk more about how the app is structured.
Sure.
You can fill in, because maybe there's questions. It is broken up into, so after our conversation, I signed up on Brightmind and got myself integrated in there and started going through the lessons. And it is a path. It is not, I've been using Insight Timer for a decade or more. And there are lots of guided meditations on Insight Timer, and that's kind of cool. And I do guided meditations every once in a while. And most of the time I'm just using the timer and just sitting and sit still, shut up, don't move. And Bright Mind has taken me all the way back or forward, all the way forward into, hey, let's talk about what is this skill? What is the thought skill? What is a mental image? Where do your mental images show up for you? Let's do this entire meditation from 12 to 60 minutes, depending on how long you want to go in this meditation, just looking at focusing on the mental image. And now next time, let's notice and name, right? And it's just one simple skill that is kind of scaffolding a number of skills. So from that perspective, now talk about how you've built it out. Like it seems like it's a scaffolding.
Sure. Yeah. So this principle of as simple as possible, but no simpler, is reflected in like the actual interface of the app. So most apps offer a library, which creates two problems. One, you have to decide what to do when you open the app, which creates decision fatigue. The second is then the learning never builds because you're all over the place. So BrightMind solves that by offering just a single expert design journey. And so you never have to make a decision about what to play. You just open the app, because that's kind of the last thing you want to do, especially if you're trying to learn meditation because you're stressed out. Just like here, just as long as you can open the app, we'll make it really easy for you. All you got to do is press play, and because it's a journey, the learning builds. I know what you did yesterday, and so I can layer on something else. And as you'll see, you're like right in the middle of it. If you do like 10 more meditations, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's all coming together. I layer on stuff just a little bit every day, but you start to realize again, and like especially like 10 meditations in, it's like, oh, this was all adding up together, and all these things that I'm learning are interrelated, and this is how they work together. And so you can basically develop pretty sophisticated understandings by just doing it in a linear way. And so that was very intentional. And I actually, previous versions of the app were not built that way. And I've spent like years researching literally different ways to set up the app experience. And this seems to be a really good way. It also provides a sense of progress, which a lot of people, especially people who are struggling, feel like I don't really know if I'm getting anywhere. I don't know if I'm doing it right. It's like if you see a list of all the things that you've covered and all the things that you've learned, and you have like a clear progression going forward, and you have level badges, you can earn level 2, which is Fox badge. I have lots of cool animals for the badges. I can add a sense of progression, which is nice.
And this is, so that's kind of the first piece, right, of Bright Mind. And then the other pieces that you brought in, which circle back to the monastery conversation, is community and engagement.
Right.
So talk more about the ecosystem that you've created.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons a lot of people struggle is they're not doing it in community. And so that's another key way in which I'm really trying to support people in a holistic fashion. So there's daily sits. There's like 5 daily sits every day where the community joins together on Zoom to meditate together. A lot of them were self-organized. Like I didn't even organize a lot of the community sits. Like my community just like wanted to practice together, and I just like gave them a Zoom link, and it was awesome. Really facilitating that kind of connection. And also like Brightminders are all over the world because it's an app. So we have tons of users in Europe, Australia, all over. This is a really cool way to just like meet people. And so we have daily sits. We have a community chat where people stay in touch asynchronously, and it's really lovely to like see questions. That's the peer support. I actually try to, as the teacher, I kind of try to lay back because it's much cooler and more helpful to people actually to learn from each other. And so you let more senior students explain stuff to people who are just starting out. And there's actually some pretty interesting pedagogical research on that, like from education, doctor, PhD people. They say that the best way to learn something is from someone who's just ahead of you. Not 10 miles ahead of you, someone who's just ahead of you. That's actually the best way to learn something, because there's some kind of like peer relationship, and it's not scary, or it's not intimidating.
Yeah.
You're just learning with a peer, you know? So the community chat's a great place for that. And I also there's several one-on-one coaches that you can meet with too, which is helpful for like, I really need support. Like I need like an hour to like just really like maybe get some custom techniques or some reflection, or like maybe some like life coachy stuff. Like, well, have you considered that? So that's really helpful. And then tons of retreats. We do like virtual retreats, which are like intensive 4-hour practices, in-person retreats. I'm about to do a 6-day retreat at the Omega Institute. So yeah, I host like 2 to 4 intensive retreats. And that's really an opportunity, especially the in-person ones, to come together in community, actually sit together in the same room. It's really special for a mostly online community, but it's really important. Yeah, so that's kind of some of the ways that I'm incorporating community into the offering.
And if somebody has been sitting in another type of practice, say a TM practice or a Zen practice, are they going to recognize, are they going to recognize and be able to drop right in? So I know there's a bunch of guys in MKP who are transcendental meditation folks.
It's a great question. I think about this a lot.
Yeah.
The short answer is, even if you are very experienced in a specific tradition, you'll still get a lot out of Bright Mind, because it's almost like you're perfectly ready for a more comprehensive, precise, and practical system, which is what we deliver. So the first few meditations, depending on the specific tradition that you're coming from, the first few meditations in Bright Mind, they might feel a little slow, but that's intentional, right? So we just gotta get on the same page in terms of terminology, most importantly. Like I use the word concentration in a technical way, and it might be slightly different from the way that your tradition uses the word concentration. So it's mostly just about actually getting on the same page in terms
context,
of terminology. Yeah. Which you have to do if you're learning from anyone. It's just like, this is how I use this word, and this is how I use this word. But it's good. It's always good. I mean, ask any master. It's always a good time to review the basics. It's always a good time to review the basics. Like you ask some 100-year-old Zen master what they're doing, they're saying, oh, I'm just focusing on the breath. That's what I'm working on right now. So, and it's true. It's like, whoa, okay. So it's always a good time to review the basics, and absolutely, whatever your background is, it'll be a technique in Bright Mind, because it's a very comprehensive system. Like TM is here good. Zen, like just sitting, is more like our autofocus. Like it's a very Shinzen, who's the main teacher that I work with, he likes to think of it as like a universal menu of mysticism. So you'll see your practice pop up at some point and be like, oh, that's what I've been doing. But you'll also see, I frame it as like a comprehensive, like this is all of the different meditations you could do and the different skills you're developing. And it's just like, yeah, highly systematic, as I've been saying.
That was a great transition that you brought Shinzen in and mysticism in, because I think the language that you use, when I speak to you, I get engineer. Like,
oh yeah,
that's what I get, right? Is like precise. it's precise. It's systematic. It's like all of this stuff. And so now let's talk about meditation, or talk about the big practice as mysticism. So spirituality is a buzzword out there, and most of us have some association, attraction, or allergy to concepts of spirituality. So talk about bright mind and meditation practice and learning these kinds of skills in the framework of mysticism, in the framework of spirituality?
So if there was like a spectrum of very secular practice to very traditional practice with lots of dogma and stuff, ritual, maybe belief thrown in there, Bright Mind is solidly on the like secular side of the spectrum. So overall, I think I would answer your question as it is very the brand, the experience is very much of an engineering mind. But here's what's funny is if you use the rigor of an engineer mind to do a practice like this, you end up encountering really weird shit. Which is what I was kind of started saying is like, if you bring the rigor to the technique of what you're doing, like you start to lose track of space and it feels really good. And it's like, how do you describe that? It's like, well, mysticism is a pretty good word. Right? So it's kind of like we're sneakily mystic. I guess but I definitely also have an allergy to exaggeration or magical thinking or, you know, new age type stuff. I definitely, I think some of that is less helpful than helpful for folks. And even compared to Shinzen uses a lot of mystical language. He'll say stuff like the universe is becoming aware of itself or something. I never say that stuff in my guidance because I don't think it's, I think it's just unnecessary kind of. And I don't like, it's kind of getting into the realm of the metaphysical. Like I don't see the need to make metaphysical claims. It's just your experience. It doesn't have to be related to God. It's just like you're really concentrated. And that is really kind of an altered state. And that's interesting. And let's tie that to a set of ethics and conduct. And like, this feels really good. And if you want to use the word God, if you want to use the word mysticism, if you want to use that type of language, then go ahead. And it kind of fits for a lot of people, but you don't have to. The way that whenever I frame stuff like that in Bright Mind, I often say stuff like I've used the word God in some of my talks, you know, when I'm talking about stuff, but I always say, I like the word God. It makes me feel nice. But you don't have to. Take it or leave it. You know? So it's kind of a down to earth deep end. But I think the most important answer to your question is very engineering rigor up front. But because that's effective, people end up having what I would call, and what the contemplative science community would call, like mystical experience. Like scientists study this. This isn't even that, it's not that weird. Like there's a mystical experience questionnaire that's been used in like hundreds, maybe even thousands of research papers. Like there is something called a mystical experience. And it's defined as like, well, there's like 5 characteristics. We don't have to go into it, but yeah, that's how I would answer your question.
Do you know what the 5 characteristics are off the top of your head?
I could look them up real quick. I mean, I could try to remember them, but let me just look it up real quick.
And while you're doing that, I'll say, and that is one of the things that I like about it. And in my own experience of meditation was through Rinzai Zen, has been primarily through the Zen tradition. And I've certainly had flashing mystical experiences that I have only afterwards been able to get language for or gain understanding of. just because of
Yep.
the practice. Yeah.
So there's 4 primary dimensions.
Of mystical experiences. Cool.
Yeah, I guess mystical is the first one, but I can give some examples in a minute. Mystical, positive mood, transcendence of time and space, and ineffability. So like examples of mystical are freedom from the limitations of your personal self and feeling a unity or bond with what was felt to be greater than your personal self, experience of pure being and pure awareness, experience of oneness in relation to an inner world within, right? So, and then positive mood is pretty obvious. Sense of reverence, that's a good example. I can send you the links.
Yeah.
And I talked a lot about space and time already.
Yes.
I think one other thing is like, I'm forgetting the word, but it's like you have a sense that what you are experiencing is closer to reality than what you were previously experiencing. I think that's one of the things on the questionnaire, which I thought was really interesting, right? So people say when they have mystical experiences, like, oh, I was seeing more clearly than I have in the past. I saw something and it had the vibe of truth. That's, if you ask me, that is what makes people start to talk about God. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't know. I'm just saying, when you have experiences, it's like, oh, I really actually felt my breath or something. I really transcended something, and that was actually more true than the usual way that I bop about the world.
Yes.
I think that flavor of spiritual experience is what causes people to, when they talk about it, start to make it a little more rigid than it has to be. Like, I experienced God, or I had a mystical experience, or the worst is like, I am now better than you, or like, I see things more clearly than you do. Oh, that's the worst. That is not what it should lead to. So, but it's interesting. I mean, that's why it's so common, is because I think this type of experience it's always such, it has that flavor of like truth, clarity.
Yes. Ineffability. Great. Can we talk about nihilism?
Sure.
Just because it's fun. I notice, and I have noticed that for me, in my best experiences, purest experiences of meditation, one of the things that I immediately come face to face with is nihilism, is the sense that nothing means anything and it's all shit, in a kind of not comfortable way. On the other side of that is a spectacular and ineffable experience of something more true, right? Yeah, like exactly what you're saying. Talk about meditation, meditative practice, and cynicism, nihilism, a disconnection, rejection of reality. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. So in Buddhism, there's the Four Noble Truths, right? And the first noble truth is life is suffering.
Yes.
And it's funny because it kind of sounds like the Buddhist tradition is nihilistic then. It's like, well, wait, what the fuck? Life is suffering. That's not very inspiring or anything. And it's funny. There's like a joke. A lot of people say that Buddhism has like really bad marketing. Like, don't start with that. Don't start with life is suffering. That's not a good hook.
Not a good tagline. Yeah.
So I guess what I would say is, on the one hand, that's an inevitable phase of practice, and you'll experience it multiple times throughout a lifetime of practice. And there's all sorts of themes that come up if you do the practice consistently. And it's not necessarily a problem, because the practice is really getting at a lot of unconscious stuff. And when you start to digest some of that, it can result in all sorts of states, including nihilism. So on the one hand, it's just part of the path, and you encounter all sorts of emotions and perspectives as you walk the path. The other thing I would say, which is probably a more important answer to your question, is this is where the importance of having a teacher comes in, also having a community comes in, and also having a broader framework that meditation fits into. So you have like a moral code.
Mm-hmm.
You're paying attention to the way that you're speaking in the world. What's your career? How do you feel about that? What are your worldviews? Are those worldviews skillful or not? So those things, having a teacher, having a community, and have like a broader structure of psycho-spiritual wellness is what's gonna cure kind of a chronic case of nihilism, which I think is more of what you're asking about. And when a student experiences that's what I point them to. I mean, specifically with the kind of structure, it's like, well, let's check some of your other assumptions about this practice and about your life
Mm-hmm.
and about your worldviews and how you're acting. And this is actually a
Mm-hmm.
great example of the way in which there's that loop, right?
Yes.
Because what you're pointing to is a symptom probably of something in the, you could say, responsibility domain. And you actually have to fix something over here. What are your relationships like? What is your career like? Maybe you need to go see a therapist. You need to fix something that's more in like the here and now, the imminent. And that's actually going to resolve this blockage. The answer is not necessarily more meditation practice. It's to work over in the other domain.
And that work in the other domain then frees up the practice to continue deepening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Beautiful. So Bright Mind app, you've spent a decade working on the Bright Mind app?
A little more than a decade at this point. It's been a very passionate, big part of my life.
And there's an invite that you would like to put out to our listeners and the Mankind Project community for Bright Mind. You want to share that with us?
Sure. So yeah, I'm offering y'all 1 free month. This just seems like we have, like, our communities have a lot of shared values and experience. And so if you're interested, I want to make it easy. So the way you would do it, just download the app from the App Store and then, log in or whatever. And when most people are prompted to start a free trial.
Yep.
But you guys just click, I have a promo code, and then enter in MKP. And that promo code will give you a month of free access. And if you want to keep going, you can start the regular free trial or whatever. But yeah, I'm happy to offer that. And you'll see a contact us button in the app. If you fill that out, it goes directly to me. So feel free to reach out with any questions or comments about this conversation or what you're learning in the app. I love responding to those emails. It's like a great part of my day.
Really good. Toby, I'm very grateful that you reached out. Very grateful that I've discovered the Bright Mind app and have actually started walking through that path we were talking before we hit the record button. Meditation is the cushion over there on the floor, but it's also the elliptical machine at the gym at Planet Fitness around the corner. So I've been on a journey with Toby in the Bright Mind app on the elliptical machine, which is I think it's a cool way to do it. Like, I have reference points now where I can tell you what machine I was near or where I was in the gym when I was listening to specific tracks in Bright Mind, which I think is a good associative tool.
Just to add some color there, one of the things you learn in Bright Mind is how to practice while moving. And you can totally do practice while it should be something pretty simple.
Yeah.
So the elliptical is great. So that's a good option. Love that you're enjoying that.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to talk. Any last words, and then we'll close out for the day.
Maybe just like one last point that might be helpful for folks is think of the word meditation like the word sport. So like in sports, there's a variety of different kinds of sports. There's like tennis and there's basketball and there's soccer and there's football. And they're pretty different. Like in some sports, there's a goal, and in some sports, there are boundaries, but other sports, there's neither of those. All sorts of different rules of the game, right? But there is something that unifies all sports, is that they develop strength, flexibility, hand-eye coordination. So meditation is the same in that there's like a wide variety of practices, some with contradictory instructions. Very important to remember. Don't get confused if you encounter two meditations that say opposite things. It's like saying, well, in golf, there's a ball, but in NASCAR, there's no ball. So what is there a ball or not? They're just different sports, different meditations. Don't get confused about that. But there's also fundamental skills that literally all meditation techniques develop. I call them concentration, clarity, and balance. Other teachers have different names for the skills, but rest assured that whatever you're practicing, it will develop concentration, clarity, and balance. And it's really interesting and cool that all these different techniques develop the same core skills. And that's part of how once you learn part of why if you learn one technique fully, those skills start to translate to other parts of your life because they just kind of, it's like osmosis. So yeah, I just want to leave that with folks that meditation is like the word sport. Don't get confused if you get different instructions, different places, and rest assured that all the techniques develop the same core skills. So also don't get too uptight about choosing which technique to practice. They're all good. They all develop concentration, clarity, and balance. There's some advantages to like tweaking technique choice, which I'll get into thoroughly in Bright Mind. It's like a very central part of that is like technique optimization. But at the end of the day, it also doesn't matter that much. So yeah, it's just a good thing to keep in mind.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Really, really lovely to chat.
Toby Sola, go check out the Bright Mind app. Use promo code MKP to get a free month. Thanks very much. Talk to you guys soon. Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.